Greetings, Spooky fans! Michael here, and with the release of the Crown Tundra, legendary Pokemon are being shoved down our throats again. Back in my day, legendary Pokemon, in my opinion, felt more special because there were fewer of them. In the original Kanto games, there were just the birds and Mewtwo. In the Johto games, there were the beasts and then your game mascot. In the Hoenn games, there were some more, but overall there were still relatively few available. But then you have more recent games like Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon and the Crown Tundra that make it so virtually every previous legendary Pokemon is available, which results in there being so many for you to find that you can make a freaking legendary zoo. Now, part of the reason we have so many legendary Pokemon now is because the game series has been around for almost 25 years. So there's simply just a lot that have built up over time. But I think another reason we have too many legendary Pokemon is that too many of these legendary Pokemon are considered legendary when they shouldn't be. In today's video, I'm going to fix that problem. I'm going to go through every single legendary Pokemon and determine once and for all, because I absolutely have that power, whether it should remain a legendary Pokemon. So don't forget to subscribe to my channel since less than half of my viewers are not subscribed, which is no. And let's dive in to the Great Legendary Purge. Okay, I probably shouldn't say that. That sounds a lot worse than it is. First is determining a criteria for what makes a Pokemon legendary. And yes, I have to be the one to come up with that. According to Bulbapedia, no explicit criteria defines what makes a Pokemon a legendary Pokemon. Instead, the only way to identify a Pokemon as belonging to this group is through statements from official media, such as the games or anime. There is a bit of information in the game code, but the game code honestly kind of convolutes things further because it denotes things as legendary and then sub-legendary. And sub-legendaries are allowed in the battle facilities and regular legendaries are not. But are the sub-legendaries still legendary? They kind of say it is, but kind of not. And so it's like, Plus there's the whole deal with mythical Pokemon. The official media has been very inconsistent about whether these are a totally separate class of Pokemon or just a subset of legendary Pokemon. The whole thing's a mess. So for the sake of this video, I'm going to be sorting this nonsense out by creating 3 criteria that a Pokemon must meet in order to be classified as legendary. The first is that they have to be strong. This one's pretty straightforward. The second criteria is that there needs to be some kind of lore or backstory about the Pokemon. The word legendary is defined as being described or based on legends. So there has to be some legends about the Pokemon. If you just find it without having heard about it first, then that's not based on legends. It's just a rare Pokemon. And the final criteria is that there can only be one in a particular region. Obviously, as the games have gone along, older generation legendary Pokemon have reappeared in other games, but that's just to make them accessible to players who are playing the new games but didn't play the old ones. What I'm saying is that a legendary Pokemon is unique. So in its home region, and excluding any event distributions, because those don't make any story sense, there can only be one in the entire game anywhere. If it's repeated even once, then it's not legendary in my book. One more thing, for the sake of this video, I'm not gonna be talking about mythical Pokemon. Like I said, it's kind of confusing as to whether they are a subset of legendary Pokemon or a category all their own. And besides, they're pretty much all gonna meet the 3 criteria I mentioned anyway, so there's no point in me going over them one by one. Well, except Hoenn. Hoenn is just, why does it exist? It's so stupid and pointless. Oh, actually, one more thing. I'm not looking at the anime at all. The anime is a mess. It's just taken far too many creative liberties about multiple of this kind of Pokemon and is it real or is it not? Like, there's 2 freaking Mewtwo's in the anime world. That's ridiculous. Also, they said Unknown was a legendary Pokemon in the anime, which it is definitely not. So the anime, we're just, no, put that aside. It's its own weird thing. We're just looking at the main series games. games. But now I think that covers all of the important criteria, classification type stuff, so now I can start going through each individual legendary Pokemon and determining whether it is still legendary based on my system. And the first ones I'm gonna cover are the Kanto legendary birds. And according to my system, they're just the Kanto birds now. Not legendary. Articuno, Zapdos, and Moltres fail in 2 of my 3 criteria. The one they succeed is their strength, base 580 stat total, perfectly acceptable. The first category they fail in is not having enough backstory or lore. They don't really have any. The biggest piece of lore about the legendary birds is their association with Lugia and the different islands with the orbs and stuff, all of which was the main focus of Pokemon the Movie 2000. Now I could be wrong about this, but in the games, I couldn't find any mention of their association with Lugia, like at all. The extent of the backstory you get about them before encountering them is basically just mentions of them being noticed, like, oh, I saw a blue Pokemon flying near the Seafoam Islands. That's not lore or backstory. That's amateur bird watching. Their second failure is that there's more than one of them. In the Gen 1 and Gen 3 Kanto games, there's only one of each, but in Let's Go, they have a very small chance of appearing in the sky on most any route in the game after you've defeated the League, even after you've captured them at their usual locations. Now, you could argue that this is only in the Let's Go universe, but maybe they're showing up in Red, Blue, Yellow, Fire, Red, Leaf, Green 2. You just can't see it because you can't fly. The idea that there's more than one of them is supported by the existence of their Galarian forms. It's possible that the Galarian birds are just very similar to the original birds and got the same name due to the resemblance, but it's also possible they evolved from a common ancestor. If evolutionary divergence happened, that means there had to be quite a few of them at some point or another. So to me, the legendary birds are not legendary. They're just rare and special. Next up is Mewtwo, and Mewtwo gets to stay legendary. It's obviously plenty strong enough, and you could debate me on the lore part, but I think it's sufficient. The fact that there's an entire building, the Pokemon Mansion, giving you backstory about it in little bits and pieces counts as legend lore to me. This backstory is more recent, but it definitely does create legends about what the heck happened at the Pokemon Mansion, and you have to piece it together and then go find it deep in this guarded cave. So you could debate me on that part, but I think it counts. And finally, there is only one Mewtwo in the entire Kanto games, so it gets all 3 categories in my eyes and stays legendary. Now on to the Johto region, starting with the legendary beasts, Raikou, Entei, and Suicune. Now, they are plenty strong, and they have sufficient lore and backstory. The story of how the tower caught fire and they were trapped inside, and then Ho-Oh resurrected them as these legendary beasts, like, that's a great story. It's a legend, and they are the subject of legends, so that works. But is there only one of each of them in the Johto games? Well, kind of. In the original Gen 2 games, there is only one of each, but the Battle Frontier in Heart Gold and Soul Silver changes things up. Castle Valet Derek uses an Entei in his Gold Print challenge in the Battle Castle, and Hall Matron Argenta can use all 3 of the legendary beasts in the Battle Hall. Now, normally this would make me count out the legendary beasts, but I'm not going to, because the Battle Frontier in Heart Gold and Soul Silver is not real? Is that the right word? The Gen 4 Battle Frontier started in Diamond and Pearl with just the tower, led by Palmer, who is Barry's dad. So very much a Sinnoh thing. Then in Platinum, it was expanded to be the entire frontier, not just the tower. Then in Heart Gold and Soul Silver, they took the Battle Frontier and pushed it somewhere else. The Heart Gold Soul Silver Battle Frontier is the same thing as the Platinum Battle Frontier. It's the same structures, same people, everything. And that doesn't make logical sense. How do you have identical everything in 2 different places? To me, this means the Battle Frontier in Heart Gold and Soul Silver is in the same category as other region legends showing up in other regions. It's there for player access, not as a logical part of the universe. This is basically a long-winded way of saying that in my eyes, the Gen 4 Battle Frontier is canonically built in Sinnoh, not in Johto. So therefore, any appearances of the legendary beasts in that Battle Frontier are in the Sinnoh region. So they have no bearing on the status of the legendary beasts in the Johto region. So because of that, the legendary beasts are strong, have a backstory, and don't appear anywhere else except the ones you find in the wild. So to me, they stay legendary. Next up is Ho-Oh and Lugia, and this is a quick one. They're still legendary. They're very strong, they have the backstory with the 2 towers and one of them burning down, and they're only found once each in their particular games. Now we can move on to the Hoenn Legends, starting with the original Regi trio of Regice, Registeel, and Regirock. Now these 3 are plenty strong, and they absolutely have enough backstory with the different caves and the seafloor cavern and people sealing them away because they feared their power and all that, so that's good enough for me. But are they found just once? Absolutely not. In the Emerald Battle Frontier, Pyramid King Brandon uses all 3 of them in his first battle, and they're possible rental Pokemon in the Battle Factory. I excluded the legendary beasts appearing in the Heart Gold Soul Silver Battle Frontier because that Battle Frontier isn't really supposed to be there. It's the Sinnoh Battle Frontier that they just plopped somewhere else. But the Emerald Battle Frontier, that started in Hoenn. That is a canonical Hoenn location, and so therefore that means someone based in the Hoenn region also got some Regis alongside you, which means there's more than one of them, and I can't classify them as legendary. Next up is Latios and Latias, and I am saying they are not legendary. They're strong enough, but they fail in the other 2 categories. For lore, they have barely any. You have a TV broadcast saying, oh, a red or blue Pokemon was spotted, which is amateur bird watching. Southern Island, the canonical home/base of these Pokemon, has an inscription talking about memories and dreams, but that's more of a random poem than lore about the backstory of Latios and Latias. We know nothing about how they came to be, and there are not really any stories about them impacting or doing anything with the people of the Hoenn region in ancient times. They're just rare brother and sister Pokemon, which is not lore. Plus, they're also seen elsewhere in the Battle Frontier. Salon Maiden Annabelle has Latios in her gold symbol battle, and Dome Ace Tucker uses Latias in his gold symbol battle. And they are available rental Pokemon in the Battle Factory. Clearly this species is just rare, but there's still multiple of them, so that's not legendary to me. Finally for Hoenn is the Weather Trio, and like with Ho-Oh and Lugia, pretty straightforward here, they're still legendary. Strong enough, lots of backstory, and they're the only ones. That does it for the Hoenn Legends, so now on to the Sinnoh Legends, starting with the Lake Trio, Mesprit, Azelf, and Uxie. They are strong enough, and they certainly have backstory, with Arceus, pronunciation intentional, if you know, you know, creating them and them representing all of human consciousness. They seem pretty legendary, but there's more than one. Home-Matron Argenta can use them in the Battle Hall, and as I discussed earlier, this frontier's true home is Sinnoh. Therefore, someone based in Sinnoh was able to find more of these Lake Guardians, which means there's more than just the 3 that you find, and therefore, that's not legendary to me. Next up is the Creation Trio, Dialga, Palkia, and Giratina, and as you might imagine, they are still legendary. They are plenty strong. There's the whole backstory with Arceus creating them and creating the universe basically at the same time, and you can only find one in each particular game. Next, we have 3 Sinnoh Legends that are not related to each other, but I'm covering them all in one go for reasons you will see shortly. Regigigas, Heatran, and Cresselia. All of them are definitely strong enough to count here. Regigigas has the lore part, what with being the creator of the other Regis and having the Snow Point Temple built for it. Cresselia and Heatran, though, don't have the same level of lore. Cresselia has kind of an association with Darkrai, so maybe that could work, but Heatran is just an angry magma spider that lives in a volcano. There's not much backstory at all. But regardless of what you think about their lore, all three are disqualified from being legendary Pokemon because Palmer, the head of the battle tower, uses all three of them. His 49th battle team in Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum is all three of these legends. And he had this team from the start, even before the whole frontier was added in Platinum. As icing on the cake, Argenta can use the same three in the battle hall. God, how did she get a hold of all of these legends? My God, Argenta. Now on to the Univer region, starting with the Swords of Justice. These are plenty strong enough, and they have adequate lore about protecting small and weak Pokemon, even straight up fighting humans to do so. Also, you can only find one individual instance of each per save file, so they meet all three categories. They're still legendary. Next are the Forces of Nature, aka the legendary Genies, aka 3 buff men. They are plenty strong, and they also have some lore. People at the Abundant Shrine reveal how Tornadus and Thundurus were out destroying stuff, then Landorus whipped them into shape. The ancient people constructed the Abundant Shrine as a thank you to Landorus. Also, you can't find him anywhere else in your game. There is a downloadable tournament for the Pokemon World Tournament where players use them, but those teams are based on actual real-world VGC competitors, and definitely doesn't count, especially since you can't even download the tournament anymore. In short, the Forces of Nature are still legendary. Next is the Tau Trio, Reshiram, Zekrom, and Qrem. They are plenty strong, have the whole backstory about the original dragon splitting into 3 Pokemon, and you can only find one of each per save file. They are definitely still legendary. Now for the Kalos Legends, the Aura Trio of Xerneas, Yveltal, and Zygarde. Now these 3 Pokemon are very strong, and they have enough lore behind them to count in my eyes, with Xerneas creating life and turning into a tree, and Yveltal killing things and turning into an egg, and then Zygarde maintaining that ecological balance and being really mean when it's out of balance. So you've got those first 2 factors, and then you can't find them anywhere else in the Kalos region, so they're still legendary. But now we're on to the Alola region, the region that inspired this video because, dear God, it is a mess. First up, we have Type Null and Silvally, which are, yes, officially designated as legendary Pokemon, which is ridiculous. First off, let's look at their strength. Silvally certainly is, but Type Null is pushing it on the lower end there. Next up is the lore criteria, and to me, the backstory just doesn't fit the status of legendary. The Aether Foundation wanted to make a Pokemon that could fight off and kill Ultra Beasts, so they made 3 Type Fulls, but they didn't work well. So they put the masks on them and froze them and renamed them Type Nulls. And then Gladion stole one of them and befriended it, and it evolved into Silvally. That's not a legend, that's just questionable corporate activity. Now, an argument could be made that this backstory is basically the same as Mewtwo's, and I counted Mewtwo's backstory as adequate for being legendary. However, there are some distinct differences that I think matter. Type Null was inspired by a mythical Pokemon, but it wasn't created from one. They just took DNA from different regular Pokemon, while Mewtwo was cloned from an actual mythical Pokemon. It has direct genetic relation to an existing mythical/legendary Pokemon. And the second difference is that the way the stories are presented gives Mewtwo's story more of a legend type status. With Mewtwo, you have to search through this abandoned mansion and maybe see the diaries that explain it. And it's just got this big air of mystery around it. Whereas Type Null, Gladion's like, yeah, they made this and I took one. But even if you disagree with me and think that Type Null's backstory should count as worthy of being legendary, they don't meet the third category because there's more than one. You get one, Gladion has one, and apparently there's a third one somewhere else. So that's too many. That's not legendary. Next up are the Island Guardians, the Tapus. These are still legendary to me. They're plenty strong, they have the backstory of being the Island Guardians for centuries and who knows how long, and selecting the kahunas, and you can't find them anywhere else in the Alola region. Next up, we're gonna talk about the Ultra Beasts. Yes, all of them. There's a lot of ongoing debate in the Pokemon community about whether they count as legendary Pokemon. Bulbapedia says they're not. Cerebi says that according to the game's code, they're classified as sub-legendary Pokemon. So the weaker legendary Pokemon that are allowed into battle facilities, like the legendary birds or the beasts or the Reggies. They say the Ultra Beasts are the same as those. But in my eyes, from a story-based standpoint, they should not be legendary Pokemon. They can be on the same power level as legendary Pokemon, sure, but they're not creatures of legends. They're just aliens. But not only did they show up relatively recently as just invading aliens, not creatures of legend, there's also a lot of all of them. I believe the only Ultra Beast that you cannot encounter more than one of in Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon is Poipole. And even then, its dex entry says that in its world, it's popular as a first partner Pokemon. Poipole's not a legendary Pokemon, it's a starter. I don't think Ultra Beasts should be considered legendary Pokemon just because they're from alien worlds. Like, that'd be like someone else on an alien world calling Tyranitar legendary. It's not. It's strong and it's rare, but there's plenty of them. They're just mean dinosaurs. Next up, we have the Light Trio, Solgaleo, Lunala, and Necrozma, plus the pre-evolutions, Cosmog and Cosmoem. These are a mess. They're kind of Ultra Beasts, but also kind of not. So apparently Solgaleo/Lunala came to Alola in ancient times and were worshipped by the people of that time, which led to the building of the altar of the Sun/Moon and the lake of the Sun/Moon. And then there's the whole story from Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon where Necrozma, like the Ultra Megalopolis, people tried to restrain it and then it escaped and now it's in constant pain trying to steal everyone's light. Oh, but also Solgaleo and Lunala can create more Cosmogs. They actually do that in the game when you go to an alternate universe and then go to the lake, but you have to go to an alternate universe to do it. So clearly there's more than one, but like if we look at an alternate universe like Johto region, there's gonna be more Ho-Ohs and Lugias there, and then there's Ho-Oh Lugias on ours, but I still call those legendary. So are these other Cosmogs they're making just reproducing, or are they just alternate universe versions of themselves? Where is Solgaleo and Lunala's home even? It's really hard to decide for these, as you might imagine by my frantic storytelling just now, but I think I've settled on Necrozma being legendary, while Solgaleo, Lunala, and their pre-evolutions are not. The Cosmog line seems to be a species that just makes its home across different alternate universes and worlds. A book in the Mali City Library talks about how in ancient times when Solgaleo and Lunala showed up in the Alola region, they created more Cosmogs for the Island Guardians to watch over, to be heirs of the region for them. Their history with the Alola region led to lore and legends about them, but the reality is that they're just aliens that showed up a while ago that got ancient people excited. They're just an interdimensional species that reproduces like a regular one. And to me, that's not legendary. But the same is not true for Necrozma, because while we see multiple Cosmogs, we only ever see one Necrozma in any particular game. And it has the backstory with how it tried to be restrained by Ultra Megalopolis and then it got free and now it just hunts down and steals light from places. And so to me, Necrozma is a solitary Pokemon and is just the only one, and it goes across dimensions hunting light and making the Cosmog line its prey. I know that was long and kinda convoluted, but the simplest way to put it is that the Cosmog line, there's a lot of them. They're just an alien species that people in Alola thought were really cool. But then Necrozma is a really angry, light-hungry hunter, and he's the only one, and there's stories about it, because it's done some stuff. But now that finally covers the Alola region, so I can move on to the Galar region legendary Pokemon. First, I'll talk about the main game legends, what I'm calling the Darkest Day trio, Zacian, Zamazenta, and Eternatus. They are very, very strong, and they have the lore, the whole Darkest Day legend. There's statues of these Pokemon, for crying out loud, and they're the only ones you can find. They clearly meet the criteria for being legendary. Next up are Kubfu and Urshifu. Now, Kubfu is not strong enough, but Urshifu is, so maybe I could let that slide. However, they don't have much, if any, lore about them, just that they're a rare species that lived in mountainous areas far away from Galar. And it being the armor of the dojo is just kind of that dojo's tradition that Mustard set up. But the definitive reason they shouldn't be legendary is that there's a bunch of them. You get a Kubfu, Mustard has a Kubfu, Leon apparently had a Kubfu at some point but couldn't evolve it because he couldn't find the right tower. No, this is just a rare special species. It's not legendary. Next up are Regieleki and Regidrago, and I'm actually classifying them as legendary Pokemon. They are plenty strong enough, there's only one you can find of each, and they have lore and backstory with the Split Decision ruins. Now what this means is that the original Regitrio and Regigigas are not legendary, while these new ones are. But I can explain it. So we saw that there was more than one of the original Regis in their home region, so who knows what the Regigigases over there created. However, as of now, the Galar Regigigas appears to have made one of each of the original three, but then it went the extra mile, and it made Regieleki and Regidrago. That makes Regieleki and Regidrago more special than the other Regis that are seen elsewhere in their home regions. So they're the legendary ones. Next are the Galarian legendary birds. As a reminder, I did not classify the Cantonian legendary birds as legendary because there were more than one of them. Now with the Galarian birds, there's not more than one of them, but I'm tempted to say that there kind of are because of my theory about them being part of the same evolutionary tree as the original birds, meaning there had to be plenty of them for that divergence to occur. But regardless of that, they don't have enough lore for me to count this. People see them at the tree, they just go to the tree because they like the berries. That's not lore, there's no story there. That's just a common meetup point. Finally are the King and Steed Pokemon, Calyrex, Glastrier, and Spectrier. They have plenty of backstory. We got the whole story there in the Crown Tundra, and there's only one of each. Calyrex is, I think, too weak when in its regular form, but it has other forms that are strong enough, so it makes up for that. These three, still legendary. So to summarize, my new trimmed down list of legendary Pokemon is Mewtwo, the legendary beasts, Ho-Oh, Lugia, the Weather Trio, the Creation Trio, the Swords of Justice, the Forces of Nature, the Tau Trio, the Aura Trio, the Island Guardians, Necrozma, the Darkest Day Trio, Regieleki and Regidrago, and the King and Steed Trio. The others are definitely rare and special, but in my eyes, they shouldn't be classified as legendary. Thanks so much for watching, and an extra special thanks to my patrons over on Patreon who are helping support my channel independent of the fluctuating nature of the YouTube ad business. If you wanna help support me in the same way, the link is in the description below. Also, if you wanna check out some more of my fun Pokemon content, I recommend these videos here. All right, that's all I have for now, so till next time, big fans. Gotta catch them all.